Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about Jigo Kuraku. To be honest, actually I recorded this already. It was a 22 minutes video long video, but the problem was that I recorded with my mic muted. So basically I actually read everything already. So I have my general thoughts on what each of the characters do, but it's not going to be as surprising or as informal as I expected it to be, because basically I pretty much wrapped up the video. I've wrapped up my thoughts. I've pretty much known what each of these characters' kits do, and yeah, we're just gonna record it one more time, and here we go. Okay, so bear with me. So the thing about this video this time is that I'm not going to say the summary of my thoughts exactly, because I found that everyone was just skipping the my thoughts and then just leaving and then just going to the next YouTuber, then just going to the next YouTuber, then just going to the next YouTuber. So I'm just going to share my thoughts on each of the units so that you can slowly listen to it and maybe you can agree or disagree. Now the problem before I begin is that you need to understand that some of these characters have been pronounced as outdated to the statistics of JP because of the slime units. So you have to take my takes with a grain of salt, and super nuking is something that not many people can do because there aren't as many super nukes for uh not as many super awakened units to nuke with. Now when I mean super awakened nuke, I mean like 8 different units in raids, for example, to just straight up just SA everyone SA, because right now it's like half of them do magic, half of them do physical. They don't really mesh well at the moment, but as we get more units, we will slowly see some nuking together. So you will see what I mean later. So for Gabimaru, I personally think that his skill CT is amazing. It's 11 seconds, and every 11 seconds, if you're unafflicted by a status ailment, you effectively get arts by 60 instead of 30. Now if I turn on the calculator here, I'm just going to pull out the calculator. So if you take a look at 60 divided by 11, this is already quite huge because every 5 you get basically 5 arts per second from your skill. Now if say I take skill CT, which is approximately, if I'm not mistaken, it was 18, right? So 11 times 0.89, this is the amount of seconds required for your skill to come back. And if you take 60 divided by that, 9.79, oh shit, uh sorry, give me a moment. If you take this 9.79 and then you divide it by, sorry, you take 60 divided by, I'm failing my maths, what the fuck. If you take 60 divided by 9.79, you get 6 arts per second essentially, which is amazing. In comparison to that 5, you get an extra 0.6 arts per second if you have skill CT up. Now with arts, the arts is very questionable because, to be honest, when you have a look at, like, for example, Ainz and Rin, they also have a 100% chance to inflict burn, and they have something tied to it. But for Gabimaru, what's tied to it is he increases his own arts by 50. So it depends on the future content. If most things require burn, then this is an easy way to just say, okay, this is your burn, take it, and I get 50 back. So we'll have to see. So arts is like questionable. True arts, the modifier is pretty good for awoken standards, not ascension standards. But for 30 seconds, you increase allies crit rate by 100% and fire allies damage by 150%. Now, the thing about allies crit rate is pretty much everyone gives crit rate today. So how good it is, we're not too sure. For example, Ilya gives crit rate easily, right? Okay, though that's physical, magical, but this is physical, but you get my point. Or Ainz, right? Like, effectively with crit res down, he's basically giving people crit rate. And fire allies damage up by 150%. Now, this is pretty interesting. I don't recall anyone, in global at least, giving this amount. So it will be nice to have for now. This allows him to be a support nuker. Now, everyone talks about him being a main nuker, and that's because of the super arts. His super arts is 180k modifier, and for this duration, he increases his own crit rate by 100%, which means that your whole team does not need to crit, he only needs to crit, then he can just use SA. And then his super crit rate increases by 30%. This is very good already. If you take a look at Wargod Fen, he's already taking super crit rate by 30%. But if you take a look at his passive, his passive here, when own HP is 90% or above, he increases his own super crit by another 30%. This means that Gabimaru has the potential to out DPS Fen. The problem is, Fen has a very underrated mechanic that no one uh, bothers remembering. It's the fact that the reason why Fen deals so much, even though he has super crit, is because he also gives himself 200% attack up and 200% damage up for free to himself. That is why Fen is doing a lot of damage. But if you can find new support nukers that give equally as high attack and damage ups to Gabimaru, uh, in terms of skills, not in terms of equipment, because equipment you can use it for both, then Gabimaru will out DPS Fen in the future. But for now, it depends on how much his super crit rate is. But because I have no experience, I can't really tell you whether who out DPSs who, to be honest. But I would say that there is potential. He is the first DPS, straight up just DPS, ready to show global players the art of how high super arts can do, basically the amount of damage. And even if he does get outscaled, which a lot of people have said, they say Gabimaru is just a DPS, he's going to get outscaled in the future by, for example, this new slime units, I think of what, 540k modifiers. But I do think that Gabimaru can be a support because of this. Now, the problem is his supporting skills would be a bit terrible as well. When I mean support nuking. I think he's a terrible support sustain unit, even though of his skill. Because if you take a look at his slots, they don't really provide anything. These are more towards a nuking style. At most, his support, his 4-star LB sub, is the only thing that can help in the sustain. He also doesn't provide arts or anything, or negations or anything, so Gabimaru is very weak unless you just need a straight up DPS. Now, if we take a look at Sagiri, Sagiri is a very interesting character because her skill tries to make her increase her own damage by 20%. She's trying to be a DPS if you take a look at this skill, right? And this skill is basically the same as Charlotte's Pure Ruffles. It's the same case where you basically want to use EQCT to stack your Charlotte's Ruffles as fast as possible, like as many stacks. So instead of 20%, you get 40%. Yeah. So the same thing lies here, where you want to try to stack Sagiri's damage up by 20%, by 40%, sorry, to make it overlap, and then you use your SA or something. The problem is that Sagiri, if you take a look at his arts, her true arts and her super arts, you'll see that she's trying to become more of a support instead. So if you take a look at her arts, for 20 seconds, you increase allies' physical damage and break power by 75%. If you even cover just one of this, and if you take a look at this, this is a lot for 100 arts, because if you take a look at the equipment we have today, like for example Nox on a dark unit would be 60% up, but for 100 arts, which you literally can just provide with one axis, you can get free 100%, 75% physical damage up. And if you care about this, you can be break power 75% up as well. Now I'll get back to this later, but we will move on to true arts and super arts first. True arts wise, right, you increase your allies arts by 20. For 30 seconds, you increase your allies arts by 3 per second, and you increase allies physical rest by 30%. It's type E. So you might think at first that, oh, if you're a noob, you might think, okay, so 3 per second, if I take a look at Ainz gives 4 per second or something. I don't remember Ainz how much. If Chloe gives 5 per second, if Mako gives 4 per second, so Sagiri is useless because 3 per second. Wrong. Sagiri actually is probably better than your general type E units, because if you add this in conclusion, this 20, it changes things. So think of it this way. If you were to get 90 arts in total, this is completely assuming that you are not overlapping, yeah? If you were to continuously just let this run for 30 seconds, you get 90 plus 20 from the burst. So you get 110 in total. Whereas if, for example, you have a Chloe like 5 arts per second for 20 seconds, then you're only going to get 100, which means you get 10 more with Sagiri. And you get Fizz Res up. Does Chloe provide that? No. So, Sagiri is probably better for your sustains in the True Arts department. Now, whether or not this is actually good or not, it's hard to say, because in reality, what happens is when you play Sagiri, chances are you're not going to TA only after 30 seconds have passed. You are going to TA like somewhere around 15 seconds when she gets 200 arts back, especially if you're a noob, because you're probably not alternating your arts, and you're probably just spamming through arts over and over again the minute you have it. So in retrospect, you might think that Sagiri is probably bad, but I would say the arts is negligible, and she adds that little bit of physical rest by 30% if you need it. So I do think Sagiri has a place in your comp at least for most players. Now for super arts, you have a negligible multiplier or for today, and for 30 seconds you reduce enemies earth rest by 120%. This is global's first huge, more than 100% earth rest down, and it's really important that you get this for Fen in my opinion, because I think this is Sagiri is probably Fen's best supporter, because you provide type E art gen, and when you need to nuke, you can also provide just a straight up flat earth rest down by 120%. And you also can have these slots which will provide you with the replica. This will provide you with true Sujikaze or any physical rest downs, or Vipera for your earth rest downs. I think Sagiri is the best support. Now, a lot of people can disagree and say that, hey, Sagiri is actually a really bad nuker because her slot is just physical and she doesn't provide me any arts. Even Fen will provide arts, even say Forte will provide arts. But to that I say, like, honestly, it's negligible, man. Like, I'm pretty sure in the future we will get enough arts. Like, for example, M12 already gives 100 by himself straight up, right? With his support slot, he gets 150. So if, for example, you run, for example, War God Fen, Sagiri, maybe M12, if you really needed that much arts, and then maybe one more DPS or whatever, then you will have yourself pretty much mostly entirely Earth nuke, even though it's a Rainbow nuke at the moment, because we don't have as many Earth ascended units yet. Sorry, I'm a bit sick. But essentially, I think Earth nuking is making its way, because Sagiri is out, and we have to see the next few Earth Ascension units to determine which is better. Then only we can determine which element is good, even though at the moment it's looking like fire meta again. But Earth is a very silent competitor that is about to make its way. So I do think you should collect Sagiri while you can, because we have no idea when it's rerunning. Now, if we move to abilities, when own HP is 80% or higher, you increase own accuracy by 100%. I mentioned this just now, but I'm very excited to see Sagiri nuke the Bluebird Extreme Crest on Wednesday, because you need accuracy. Now, you probably need to run, like, say, Dino, Fen with a NA, or Zila with NA, so it'll still be interesting to see though. So moving on, when own HP is 50% higher, you increase own arts by 6 seconds. This really helps your alternating. You get to true arts, and then you get to super arts. Plus, keep in mind, for 30 seconds, you have a lot of time to alternate your super arts and your true arts. So this will be really great for Fen, and I think you should get this for Fen. How good it is, only time will tell. Next, Chobe. Chobe is a very interesting unit. Even though he's a very interesting unit, apparently he's getting outclassed by Milim at the moment, so I wouldn't be too sad if you don't get him. But let's dive into the details to find out what he does that everyone is so interested about, okay? So this is whatever, because it's just increase own attack by 30%. Arts negligible modifier for awoken units. For 25 seconds, reduce enemies break rest by 40%. This is actually, I checked it just now, this is 10 seconds lower than Chloe from Fate, but it's still 40%. If you're break nuking, you won't care. True Arts 55k. For 65 seconds, increase own arts by 1 second, and for super arts, if for 65 seconds you increase own damage by 60% and own arts by 2 seconds. This one is break power, this one is own damage. So essentially they roughly do the same thing, except keep in mind this is like somewhat similar to Rem from ReZero. True arts wise, you want to be your breaker, like stackable breaker. SA, you want to be basically your stackable damage dealer. Now the question on how good it is this. In my opinion, the concept is that on your TA, if you're using your first and second TA, you're going to find that Chobe is absolutely ass, because he only provides 1 per second. Then maybe once he gets like the third loop, you will see that he gets like 3 arts per second, and on his third loop, 60% break power is whatever, right? Now if you get say 90% by yourself, now that's something huge that you will care about, right? with 4200 break, which is effectively for 200 arts, which actually you paid 600 for, but for clickbait purposes, for 200 arts purposes, you essentially get to do 12,000 break, and then you do 15,000 break that theoretically on your fourth one. I don't imagine you can stack 4 together. Actually, maybe you can, but 5 will be impossible, right? So if essentially you can dish out like 10k, 10k, 10k break, which is pretty good. And with EQs, maybe you can do like 20k ish once you get it rolling. For SA, it'll be a bit harder, and I'm not really sure anymore because this is 300 arts we're talking about, right? But you get to increase your own damage by 120%, which is theoretically good on paper. But if you take a look at, say, Fen, Fen increases his own damage by 200% up. Sure, his own arts increases by 2 per second, but is that really good? Honestly, we have to find out when we actually get our hands on the unit. So I'm not really too sure. Also, I don't think Chobe is a good cycler between true arts and super arts, though I might be wrong about this unless you need a hint of both. Okay, so only time will tell. Honestly, I need to get my hands on it. I'm not going to judge him too harshly, but I don't think this unit is as good as what I thought at first when I saw it. Yeah. Now, when only HP is 50%, 80% on higher, ignore 100% of enemies' defense and increase own arts by 100 at the start of a quest. Now, I do think that this is amazing because, for example, Gilia Crest, you need to ignore 100% of enemies' defense. You get to see in other Ascended units that have not been released, they do have some sort of defense ignore mechanic, which makes me believe that in the future there's going to be Crest Palaces or harder content that require you to ignore defense as well. I feel like this is on purpose, and I do think that this needs to be start to be collected already. You can't rely on, say, Natsu or Daki anymore. You also increase damage to god enemies by 70%. I do think this is very underrated. I'll forget about this. Increase damage to demon enemies by 70%. This is a lot as well. Oh, now that I'm remembering that I did forget something about Sagiri. Firstly, I forgot that Sagiri actually increases own damage by human enemies by 50%. I do think this is very huge because if, for example, you are fighting a lot of human enemies, there's a lot of human bosses today. Say, for example, if you're farming Hakuro, Sagiri will make your life much easier if we're taking a look at the pre-existing content that we have today. So if, for example, we run Heart, and then we run Fen, and then we run Sagiri, so we have Fen and Heart, which will be 11 arts per second. We have Sagiri, which is 14 arts per second. And then we can even run M12 if you want to be cringe, and you can run Shiro if you want to be brain dead, and you can get 14 arts per second and Earth Rest down, and you can basically farm Hakuro really freely. I also think Sagiri is an underrated break nuker because at the moment we don't have increased allies break power up by 75% in the terms of arts. So Sagiri will be pretty interesting to see with break nuking, especially with her slots. You can see that she has physical slots ready to break, you see. So we can see that Sagiri has the potential to be a break nuker, same with Chobe. So potentially Sagiri could be paired with Chobe. Now how good it is, I don't know. Now if we move to everyone's most wanted character for the wrong reasons and the right reasons, Yuzuriha is a very wanted character because of her kids, and straight up, I'm not gonna lie, everyone wants her tits. It is what it is, but let's move on to what she actually does in game. 10 seconds CT, which is very short, you heal your own HP by 40%. This is a lot, and you don't see this on anyone's kids. And this will be very interesting because this ties down to her art. You'll see later. It increases own arts by 20, which means that you get basically 2 arts per second for free for yourself. Arts wise, 15,000%. This is actually shit, but it's more for this one. For 25 seconds, you increase your own max HP by 60% and redirect 40% of allies' damage taken to self. Now, a lot of people may think, wow, Yuzuriha is helping me with the negation. Yuzuriha is going to eat everything. Now I don't need to run any more damage negation. Well, that's actually false, my guy. The reality is that even if, say, you were to run Demonic Wicked Globe, okay, let's say right now, if you were to 7 LB her, right, you were to give her 9,300 HP. Let's say you add with a Vox status up 30%, that would be approximately 12k HP. And then you run DWG, Demonic Wicked Globe, or Phoenix Devil Wings, right? You get like 15k HP, then you increase it 20k HP. The thing is, with bosses these days, they don't deal slow DPS most of the time from my own experiences. I mean, especially on those instant nukes. For example, Ignis. Ignis straight up just lands on you, drops a whole planet on you, right? With that, her HP, if she can't take that, she's just straight up dead, and you can't do anything about it unless you run Blessed Necklaces on her over and over again, which means that you have to run damage negation in some way or another, which luckily there is methods for you in the future, but for now we don't, unless you're running off tank. Say for example Sandstone, or maybe your DPS is running defense slots, like for example Forvel, then, or maybe Mikey, right, like dark units, then we can talk about that. But for now, you need to remember that Yuzuriha, just cause you have this arts thing, you can't just expect her to tank everything, and you can't react either, especially if it's instant damage, so you have to be aware of that. Now if you take a look at her true arts is actually broken as fuck, because for 25 seconds you give your allies that are unaffected by status ailments 4 arts per second, which is pretty good. Okay, then you take a look at her second part, which is literally for 25 seconds you reduce enemies dark rays by 80%. Wow, like as if this is not as if this is not overloaded as fuck already, right? Like if you just take a look at this, you would already think, wow, Yuzuriha is an amazing unit and I need her now. And then not to mention she gives you arts as well. Wow, okay, now you really need her. And then wow, EX2, wow, now you really need Yuzuriha just for the true arts alone. Now if we look at the super arts, now this is where you really want Yuzuriha. Her modifier is low, sort of. But for 20 seconds, you reduce enemies' physical res based on how high this unit's HP is when Super Arts is activated, max 200% HP. This means that if, for example, you had 60% HP, you just press your skill before your SA, you basically get 200% for free. So for every 1% of your health, you get 2% of your health. I mean, for every 1% of your health, you get 2% physical res. If you're at 50% health, you are at 100% physical res, which is basically today's Shiro. Now, if you take a look at Yuzuriha, that's 200%. And very few people can do this. If I remember, there's only one more unit who can do this. It's the new blue jacket girl, or whatever she's called. I forgot her name, to be honest. But essentially, very few people can do this, and this is the first person that can do this in global. So you should get her ASAP. And then if you take a look at this, this is literally a better Fen leader ability. When self is leader, you increase human allies damage by 50%. Like, this is not time gated, like for example Fen, because it's like for 45 seconds you reduce damage by 30%. That's only for 45 seconds. I mean, sure, most content ends by 45 seconds, but this is a non-time gated ability, and this is really great for long content. Yuzuriha is both your arts gen, she's also your dark res down, she's also your phys res down, and she heals herself, and she sort of redirects damage to herself. She's amazing. You should get her. Yes, you should get her. I do think she is the prize of the banner, and I think these three do not compare to the level that Yuzuriha is at the moment, and I think anyone can slot Yuzuriha into their team comps. But for Gabimaru, you need specific methods. Sagiri, you need specifically Fen, because Earth is pretty shit right now. They're just supports. Chobe, there's a lot of light units that can compare with him. But Yuzuriha is a support that cannot be compared with, especially given the fact that Dark actually has very little competition when it comes to arts gen, because you only have Dark Fen, Ainz, what's his name again, Leon, and pretty much that's it. So this is another arts gen unit that you should get if you can, especially if you think about, for example, right, you run Heart, then you run Yuzuriha, then you run Saber. Okay, if you get Heart and Yuzuriha alone, you get 11 arts per second, because 7 plus 4, and Saber is human, so that's 11. So then after that you add, for example, M12. M12 is another 4 if you have 50% up HP, so that's 15 arts per second. Now if you take a look at my trusty calculator, this time I won't fuck up. If you go 300 divided by 15, you only need 20 seconds to SA again as Saber, which means that every 20 seconds you are dishing out, you are straight up just dishing out another SA on Saber, and that's cracked. I mean, if you're a Saber simper, of course, but like, you get the point. You're basically getting 300 arts every 20 seconds. This is amazing. Why shouldn't you get this? And you get 50% damage up for free on a passive? Yeah, this is straight up just S tier to me. In fact, I do think this is one of the best global units that is about to be released. So you should get your hands on her if you can, wail for her, whatever, for the right reasons, for the wrong reasons. I don't care, just get her. So that's all my thoughts on Jigokuraku. In total, I think this is a DPS at the moment that will convert into a support. This is a very good support that I think is very underrated for some reason. Chobe is a unit that will seem very fun to play. I'm not going to give my thoughts too harshly, but I do think he'll be fun to play. Now, whether how good he is, I'll leave it to after I actually get my hands on him, if I do. And Yuzuriha, get her, just get her. Don't ask questions. Just get her. Just get her. There's nothing I can say. Just get her. If you remember your thoughts when you got Fen, like how you said just get Fen, yeah, just get Yuzuriha, man. Alright, that's all. Thanks for tuning into my video. I hope you at least learn something from what I do with these showcases. And if you don't agree, if you agree, well, I'm just grateful that you had to listen to me. And you can always DM me on Discord. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if I'll do these type of videos again due to the low turnout rate. But if I see there's a high turnout rate, then sure, I might do this again for, say, the next future units. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.